Welcome back, everybody, to Failing Forward. My name is Jared Wonderlick. I'm your host, and with me today is someone that I've been extremely excited to introduce you guys to. I feel like I say that every single week, though. I have someone new, and I'm like, oh, I'm really excited. But no, really,
You have some pretty awesome people.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm very, very fortunate with who I've had on the show. But Zach, in all honesty, you are someone that I've been really looking forward to sit down with, because I've never mentioned this to you, but you were, as you know, one of the first people I met when I moved to Northern Colorado.
Yep.
And I actually looked up to you right away. You became a role model of mine.
Awesome, man.
Really, before I knew a whole lot about you, it was the perception that I understood of you. You know, I just saw the way you interacted with people, and the way you carried yourself, the energy you'd bring to a room. It attracted me to you right away. What's even more amazing is that we've known each other for probably almost 4 years now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I just learned how amazing your story is. And it's blowing my mind that we have not had this conversation before.
Yeah.
So guys, with me today is Zack Whitmer. He's a former, actually, no, you're still current. You're a current rocker.
Yes.
Dare I say
secretly.
secret rocker. Rocker from California turned entrepreneur. Man, you've faced hurdles from everything from natural disasters to abusive childhood, and you have still become just an amazing inspiration for the people in and around your life.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, man. It really is.
Yeah, it's been, looking back on it, it's kind of weird because just when you're living in the moment, you don't really touch base on the whole past, but when I sit down and think of, like, when we were talking a couple weeks ago and you were asking me about kind of my life, like when I relive it, I'm just like, geez, dude, there's been a lot going on.
Yeah.
But
I feel like I just hit that point in life too, not too long ago, just in the last couple of years, where I actually started doing some self-reflecting.
Yeah.
They're the memories that have always been there, and
Sure.
they pop up from time to time, but you don't always spend a lot of time actually revisiting those moments in great detail.
Yeah, like diving deep into it.
Yeah. Normally what we do when we revisit a memory is the emotion that we're familiar with tied to that memory comes up, and we tend to just experience that emotion again very quickly, and then we move on.
Move it out.
And
Yeah,
go,
kick it
okay,
out.
like
Yeah.
that's still in there,
Yeah.
like, and you move on. But when you actually allow yourself to go past that emotion and really almost try to recall as much detail as you can.
Yeah.
It's funny how your perspective of a past experience can change.
Totally.
You almost recognize some things that even firsthand you didn't catch.
100%.
So super, super interesting. But guys, the reason Zach is here today is really to tell his story. With some of our guests in the past, we've covered some different topics, and they've shared some areas of their lives that they would consider failure, some key areas or vulnerable moments that they learned from. They were able to take some lessons from and move on. And with Zach, I really think the best thing for our listeners, honestly, is to let you take them through your story itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, and you can correct me if you don't agree with me, you have turned your life, not even turned your life, from the get-go, from what I know, you have lived in the service of others.
Still do.
You do. I
Yeah.
mean, it's what you do on a daily basis now.
I love it.
Even as a little boy, with living with your brother and your mom, I think just instinctively you lived a life in the service of others, specifically your brother.
You saying that right now, like, you're probably right. That's probably exactly where it came from.
Yeah.
And I've never once ever thought about that until you just said that right now. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So.
And that's something that didn't cross my mind until after you and I sat down the first time. It was actually while I was driving home. And again, I'm recapping everything we discussed, because sometimes it is kind of hard to take in all the details in the moment. But yeah, that car ride home and the next hour after, I just sat back and I said, it makes so much sense. Like, everything you do now, the things you do for other people,
Right.
It doesn't surprise me in the slightest, because from a very, again, I'll say instinctual basis, this is just who you are.
Right.
So if you don't mind, why don't you start with growing up in California?
Yeah.
Go ahead and walk our listeners through just kind of a little bit of what you experienced as a kid, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Santa Monica, California, which is in Los Angeles, in '83. So I was a child of the '80s. Very fortunate for that because all the best video games and best shows were around then. um, so um, my little brother was born 3 years after me, so he's 3 years younger than me, and just I'm as far back as I can remember. My mom and dad just having issues, marital issues and stuff, and so I didn't obviously know the ins and outs of that. Really young and didn't get it. Just thought it was part of life, and people argued and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I started really realizing that it was because of my mom's alcohol abuse that also turned into drug abuse. So I was like, oh, that's why they're constantly fighting, because my dad's just kind of fed up with, everything she's doing to herself and affecting our family.
Yeah. If you don't mind me stopping you for a
Yeah.
sec, is that one of those things that you obviously not just now realized, but was that something you made that kind of connected the dots for a little later in life, or was that something you
Yeah.
were pretty apparent of?
No, yeah, I kind of realized what was going on. Like at the time when I realized like it was the alcohol abuse that was affecting the family
Okay.
at a young age, I, was like looking back, I'm like, oh, that's why they've been fighting,
Yeah.
since I can remember. So, like I said, that kind of turned into drug abuse, and then my parents separated, and my dad just wasn't like financially at the best place at the moment to like, like really have me and my brother bouncing back and forth between my mother and him.
Hmm.
So we ended up living with my mom. My dad was still close. I saw him all the time, but we lived with my mom. And then I think as her drug and alcohol issues escalated, I don't know if it just led to overall frustration of like our family kind of like separating a little bit, or it was just part of the deal, like with, that much alcohol abuse that it turned into like physical and verbal abuse towards me. And then my brother was still so young that, I would really guard him from that by, kind of getting him to go to sleep earlier than me, or, just kind of getting him outside when I knew that things were starting to get bad, and I would just take on the brunt of her rage.
Yeah. And how old were you and your brother when that kind of started happening?
How old are we?
You weren't that old, were you?
No, probably 6 or 7, right around
You
there.
were 6 or 7?
Yeah,
Oh my
right
gosh.
around there. Because once we the way I got out, which I talked to you about, obviously, is in 1994 in Northridge there was a massive earthquake, and it was funny that you brought that up. You're like, oh, that kind of what saved you, and I've never thought about that ever.
Dude, that was one of the most surprising moments of our initial conversation.
Yeah,
And it really made me think about just alternate perspectives in general. Because again, if you're hearing about a natural disaster on the news,
right.
your initial thought is never like, oh, like I hope somebody ended up in a better position because of
Totally.
that. And
Yeah.
and you may have been the sole standout individual,
Right.
you and your brother, who actually were in a better position
Yes.
after that earthquake. That
The
very
first
well may
thing
be
you
true.
think of is you're like, how many people died?
Yeah.
Like how many buildings got
And,
destroyed?
and that was a big earthquake. People
it
did
was
die.
Oh, it
Like,
was massive. Like
and-
so all the apartment complexes around mine crumbled and killed
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
that's insane. But I guess my point is like it really opened up my eyes to, I don't know if I want to say the good,
like, yeah.
but like that there's possibility or opportunity in any situation. And that's
if
what
you could make it from
recognize.
that, there is for sure.
Yeah, well, but
Yeah.
that's even that was the word you used when you told me this initially. You said I knew this was my opportunity
Right.
to get my brother and myself out.
Right.
Like the fact that you were that young, you just went through a very traumatic natural disaster,
Right.
and your initial thought is, I can use this.
How can
to
I
our
capitalize?
benefit.
Yeah.
I can put
yeah.
myself in a better position. I can put my brother in a better
Right.
position. That blew my mind
Yeah.
because there are adults who are very logical thinkers who their initial reaction to something like that would not be,
Right.
can I utilize this to the best of my
Yeah.
ability?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was amazing. I think it absolutely that and just what you did for your brother itself.
Right.
I think those were probably two very pivotal pieces of your upbringing that allowed you to, or directed you maybe
Yeah.
to be who you are today.
More than likely, for
Um,
sure.
Wow.
So
Anyway,
yeah, so
go
the way
ahead.
I use that to my benefit is the earthquake was so bad that literally every phone. So in Colorado, we don't necessarily have a ton of phone poles here because everything's fiber optic.
Sure, yeah.
But in LA, there's gigantic phone poles everywhere. And so every phone pole in that city fell down. So my dad lived maybe 13 miles away. It took him like 7 hours to get to us
Oh my
because
gosh.
he was in his truck and had to drive over every single phone pole to
Oh
get.
yeah.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Oh
So
my goodness.
my dad, I just assumed we didn't have cell phones at the time. It was freaking
Yeah.
94. I think he made it, maybe had a beeper. And so I assumed that he was going to come find us. Right.
Right.
And so sure enough, like that earthquake happened really early in the morning. I want to say it was like 3 or 4 a.m. So I remember it was still kind of like late morning. It was like 10 or 11. It was cold. It was in September. And here comes my dad driving down the street in his big old truck. And so I just knew at that moment, I was like, okay, our apartment just got fucking demolished.
Mhm.
I was like, we're not moving back into that thing.
Right.
My mom's going to use this opportunity for us to go with my dad to like figure out what she's going to do. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'm just staying with my dad. Like, we're not going back. This is the end of it. Like, this
Yeah.
is the way I'm going to get out. And so I remember the second we got in that truck, he was obviously checking to see if we were okay. I was like, "Is your house okay?" Because at the time he lived with both of my aunts. Like they lived in a big house in Van Nuys, California. I was like, "Your house okay?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, the house is good." And I was like, "Cool, we're living with you moving forward." And he didn't say anything. I think he just knew at that point because he knew that stuff was bad, and I would tell him, but I don't
Yeah.
think he knew to the extent. Because when like the face of desperation that I probably gave him of like, this is it. Like it's us three boys, and we're not going back to mom's house.
Right.
And he was just like, okay, we'll figure it out. Let's do it. So another 5-hour drive home to get back to his house. We moved in with my dad, and us three shared a bedroom until I was like 17, probably.
Yeah. One room apartment kind of thing.
Yeah, one bedroom in an apartment, just trying to, scrape by. At the time, he did such a good job at masking our poorness,
Yeah.
Like me and my brother literally reflected on this probably like 5 years ago. We were talking, we were like, we were freaking poor. Like we didn't even know. Like he did such a good job at just making sure we had food and we had clothes and we were able to go to school.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, but it also taught us work ethic because, it wasn't just like, we couldn't just be like, hey, I want this skateboard. And he's like, cool, there you go. It didn't work that way
Right.
in our household. It was literally like, I want this skateboard. He's like, cool, you better figure it out and get a job. It
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I started working at a really young age because of that. I was working at 14.
Yeah. He
When-
started instilling that appreciation for the
100%.
things you did have because it didn't just come.
Yeah, and at the time I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought we were all like fine and dandy, but it was because he literally didn't have the money to buy us anything.
Sure.
But which was good because it taught me how to work.
Mhm.
It taught my brother how to work and figure it out, So yeah, so we lived with my dad moving forward, 1994, moving on, and never looked back.
And if that alone, at this point, what 12, 13 years old or so,
Mhm.
it is not the most amazing of example of life is not about what happens to us, it's how we respond to what
Right.
happens to us.
100%.
I don't know. Like
Right.
I genuinely don't. Like the other thing that popped in my head as I was kind of revisiting this story over the last week or so was, are you familiar with RAS?
Mm.
Reticular activating system.
Uh-huh.
It's that if you buy a yellow convertible, or in your case a red Tesla,
Right.
you feel like you've never seen a red Tesla before, but as soon as you buy one, you're like, oh, there's a red Tesla. There's a red Tesla.
100%.
So it's
Yeah.
what's consciously
That's
in
real.
your mind.
That's totally
you
real.
you're just more aware of.
Yeah.
And the reason my mind went to that, and specifically because usually when you talk about this, and we even actually talked about it with I think it was Tony, right? One of our former guests. We talked about this a little bit more, but it was more in terms of like visualization and manifestation,
right.
bringing things to fruition.
Sure.
But in this case, it's almost like you were just in a mental state of, even though you were experiencing what most would consider extremely traumatic experiences, it seems like you were almost always looking for the best case scenario.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It wasn't, I'm experiencing physical abuse. It was, I'm keeping my brother safe.
Right.
You were focusing on what positive you could make with the situation.
Right.
When a natural disaster, an earthquake hit California, you didn't say, yeah, my house is gone. You said, this is my opportunity to put my brother and I in a better situation. It seems to me, again, I wasn't there. I don't know you to that extent,
Right.
but I feel like with what you've shared, you just had to have a little bit different mindset than I would argue most, if not all kids your age, because as kids were extremely impressionable. You
Right.
kind of just hinted at it yourself there. You weren't really aware of your guys' living situation as
Yeah.
far as, you know, financial income goes. That was just what was normal, you know, and
Right.
kids are extremely resilient in that aspect. They experience something and they just see it and accept it as normal. And where most kids would have experienced what you did and, you know, maybe would have even looked at themselves as a victim or just focused on the negative things that were going on, you always seem to focus on the positives, to
Yeah.
focus on what was going right, what you could do to make things better.
Yeah.
Um, and I just, even up to this point, I mean, again, you're at your teens, and I'm just blown away by what you've accomplished already.
Yeah, it's and looking back on it, and I guess at the time I couldn't tell you if I was thinking that way or not, but clearly, like how things got stacked up, that's what I was trying to do the entire time, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we ended up moving to a great city in Los Angeles called Burbank, California.
Hmm.
And that's where we ended up going to junior high and high school, and that's also where I met the largest collections of my great friends that I have now. Still my best friends. Um, and so yeah, my parents ended up moving. My dad got remarried to my stepmom, who I love dearly. They ended up moving to Central California, and so me and my brother just stayed in the apartment that we grew up in. And my brother and sister-in-law to this day still live in that apartment.
The same one that you, your dad, and your brother lived in?
The exact same one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I can't even tell you how many years going now it is. It's got to be over 20.
Yeah, I was going to say at least.
Easy. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So they live there, and they just had my first nephew, and now he lives there. It's bizarre.
What's it like visiting?
I
Like,
hate it.
you don't like going back?
No,
It's
not because of like any traumatic situation, but I'm just so ridiculously happy in Northern Colorado that like I get borderline like anxiety when I go back. Just 'cause it's just so like I did the chaos for 32 years.
Sure.
You know, so it's like when I left, I knew that I was like leaving it behind. So going back is definitely a little shaky for sure.
Yeah. It's funny how we do tie emotions, usually more often than not, the darker ones,
Mm-hmm.
with location.
Sure.
Like I have a very similar area of my past. I won't say the location because I
Yeah.
still have plenty
Yeah.
of good friends that are there. But there was a 6-year point in my life where it seemed that arguably that's where most of the more impactful negatives of my life did
Right.
happen. And although I have been back since, it's just there's kind of like that cloud
Yes.
over you where you're just like, I'm in a better place now, and I know I am, but I also don't really enjoy being here.
I don't want to
much.
spend that much time here.
Yeah.
I'll come visit, but I got to get back quick.
Yeah, as soon as you get there, you're like, okay, this is good. I'm good.
I took my whole family because they've never like had like a true LA experience. So we went back last year before COVID hit, and we just did the full thing, like Universal, Disneyland, the whole. We were there for like 9 days, and dude, like by
That's
day 5,
a
my
long
brain
time.
was melting.
That is a long
Sydney was
time
looking
away.
at me just like, you okay? I'm like, too long of
No.
a trip. Too long. She's like, okay,
I'm
next
ready to go
time,
back.
Yeah, next time it won't be so long.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you grew up a little bit more just with your brother and your dad. This is actually when you started pursuing music a little bit, right?
Yeah, so I started playing in my first band in 9th grade. They didn't want me in the band. The one guy was like, "No, we got to try him out." And all I knew is that they're like a heavier, like punk rock metal
Yeah.
band, and I was into that. And for some reason, I was like, "I can do this. Like, I know I can do this." And I wanted it so bad.
Was this something that popped up like quick, like you
Not
experienced it and were like, I want to do that?
Kind
or?
of, because I was listening to heavy music really young. I'll never forget. Like my first like present that I can remember from my dad was like 4 CDs, one of them being Metallica Black Album,
Okay.
and a Sony boombox that played CDs, which was like a big deal at the time. So ever since I heard Metallica, I was always trying to look for like the next like thing.
Yep.
Like I was like, what's the next heavy thing? It's still to this day, nothing is heavy enough for me. Like I'm trying to find it. Like I want to listen to a record and I have to pause it halfway through because I'm just like, this is overwhelming. Still haven't found it. So I knew that I love music because it was a big part of my life. Also kind of an escape for me, I think, a little bit.
Sure.
My dad was like a big music guy. My brother still is. And so I wanted to play in this band. And so they gave me one tryout and I freaking nailed it. And I was in that band for 9 years.
Well, no, I think it's important to point out you're the vocalist.
Vocalist, yeah.
So
Yeah,
you like to get
I'm the
loud and proud.
untalented one. I scream into a microphone because I can't play any
Yes.
other instruments.
That's my favorite. If honestly, like if I could be musically talented at all, it'd be to do that. 100%.
It's the most fun because you have the most freedom on stage.
Yeah.
Like you're able to move a lot.
Oh yeah.
You know, and say whatever you want pretty much.
Yeah.
So
Interact with the crowd, get
yeah.
up and down the stage, 100%.
So I don't know what happened, but like it was very natural at being like a front man. Like it just came easy to me.
Mhm.
I loved it. We ended up playing like in every massive venue in Hollywood that you can think of.
That's so sick.
So we're selling out like the Whiskey and Roxy on Hollywood Boulevard literally at 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
You did
bizarre.
not tell me that the first
Yeah,
time. You're
it
like, oh
was-
yeah, and I started in a band for a little bit.
Yeah, it was pretty silly. Like I would literally, I'm not kidding you. I would play because I played varsity football for 3 years
Yeah.
in high school. So I literally would play on Friday night, and there would be like it was out of a movie, like a van with the door open, like let's go, and I would just book it right after we probably lost the game because we sucked, and jump into this van, and we would just take off because Burbank was right next to Hollywood, so we'd
Right.
go over the hill and like get to the Roxy. I would jump out of the van on Hollywood Boulevard and run into the venue and get on stage, and we'd play a show to like 500 people sold out. And we
Holy
did
cow.
we did that for like 6-7 years straight. It was ridiculous.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. We never did much with that band, no like record label or anything. We put out a bunch of albums and stuff, but just on our own.
Yeah.
It was just a fun thing. And then what I needed was just I needed a new band. Like my band was like kind of going in one direction. I wanted to get heavier and go in a different direction. So after like 9 years, I made the brutal decision to quit. And I left and started my band that ended up getting signed to a record label and doing some more stuff. But which was great though, because that band that I was in, they got a new singer and they ended up signing to a record label and do a bunch of awesome stuff.
Oh wow. So it worked out.
Yeah, it
for
worked out.
everyone
really,
involved.
It worked out. It was meant to be.
Sure.
Like I definitely felt it was just not working.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I made that decision. And I knew it was going to work out just because it felt so easy for both of us.
Right.
Like I was like, I'm going to go do this thing. This is where I should be. You guys should get him to sing for you because that's where you should be. And it like worked out flawlessly.
There we
So
go.
yeah, so I was in that band for 5 years roughly. And we got signed to a record label and toured and, you know, played a bunch of awesome big shows.
All still in LA, right?
Most of them, yeah. 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 All that was in LA. Yeah. That
Yeah.
band was in LA. Most of the members still live there. A couple of them kind of like dispersed when we broke up.
Yeah.
And then I had a quick stint in what I thought was my best band, like a metal band, like a true metal band. And it did absolutely nothing. So after that, I kind of retired from music. I was like, I've been doing it since I was 13.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I've been doing it nonstop every weekend, and just kind of called it quits.
I'm honestly a little bit amazed you have the voice that you do still.
Me too.
I have to imagine at some point, if you do that long enough, that starts to go a little
It's
bit.
actually the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, you start building your chops. We call it building your chops. So you
Wow.
just like build like a callus, I guess you would think. Like if you were lifting weights, you know, you get calluses on your hands and they kind of stick and help you.
Right.
Like it's a lot like your throat is the same thing.
I had no idea.
Now that I'm back in it, got sucked back in. Dude, it sucks because it took me about a year to get it back.
Yeah.
And I was feeling so good in February when I had our last show, and then COVID happened and we haven't practiced since.
Oh no.
So I'm like, dude, I'm gonna have to like build it back
you gotta
up.
build it back up again.
Yeah, it's gonna be a freaking mess,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm up
That's
for the
funny.
challenge. So
All right. So you're in California. A little bit of change for you. What did you call it? Value wise, like as far as what you kind of saw for your future at this point? Because
Yeah.
you started to make, or at least consider, a pretty dramatic life change at this point. So walk me through that a little bit.
yeah, so I worked for a corporate job for a long time
Mm-hmm.
just because I felt like that. Probably coming from nothing, I was like, oh, this is stability. Like
Sure.
I had a job that I was working at every day from 7 to 5 or whatever, making okay money. Like it wasn't anything fantastic, but the company that I was working for at the time, like I knew that if you stuck around for a while, they'd take care of you.
Yeah.
So I literally remember that I went from like a truck driver, I was delivering stuff and I was standing on the truck. I remember a summer day and I was there for like 2 years and I was like, I stopped what I was doing for some reason. I was like, what am I going to do? Am I staying here for the long haul and going to figure this out? If not, I need to quit now and like figure out another career path.
Mm-hmm.
Like that needs to happen immediately. What am I doing? And I was just like, I kind of just on this truck standing there, weighed out the good and the bad. And I was like, I like working here. And at the time I worked with my brother
Oh, really?
and
Okay.
my best friend. So I'm like, why would I
That
leave?
helps.
Why would I leave this?
Yeah.
I get to work with my brother and my best friend. Like, this is awesome, and I make okay money and I know that it can get better.
Sure.
Like, there's opportunity. So I was like, I'm just going to stay here and do this corporate job. So I did that corporate job for 18 years.
Wow.
Stayed there for a long time. So, but as I was kind of moving up the ladder a little bit, living in LA to buying a house in Los Angeles is borderline impossible.
Tall task.
Borderline impossible. So I knew that.
And even though it was, 1990s at this point, late 1990s.
That would have, so I graduated in 2001.
Okay. So early 2000s. So
yeah, still
not
impossible.
the market it is today, but still
ridiculous,
difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just knew at that point that I was gonna be able to buy a house. I had a friend that moved to Northern Colorado. I went and visited him, fell in love with it. And then I knew that if I moved to Colorado, working for the same company, I could transfer to Fort Collins and more than likely figure out an opportunity to buy a house up here. Because at that time in Northern Colorado, which this would have been 2013, I knew that I could afford a house probably and pull it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, in 2013, I decided to ditch LA and leave my family behind, unfortunately, and move to Colorado and make that gigantic life change.
Absolutely. And things did change pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You went from a place where you had your circle, you had your family,
Yes.
Bands, your work friends, and you came to a place where you knew a person, right?
One.
And I actually, that's very, very similar to my arrival in Northern Colorado as well.
Yeah.
Really didn't have many people around to lean on or to feel a sense of comfort in. And that's, although I firmly believe there's absolute strength in being alone. That's, to me, that's when our mind enters a place that we typically don't explore a whole lot when we're surrounded by others. For an organism that's relatively impatient, we're always wanting to receive stimulus. And when we don't provide it with that, whether it's, through looking at our phones or, talking with somebody,
right.
Our mind starts getting to a place that we don't venture into a lot.
Yeah.
But even with that, relationships are important. They're a huge piece of essentially everything we do for the most part. Most of people, when I was actually just reading this not too long ago, from a neurology perspective, we don't think of ourselves as who we are or who others think we are. We think of who we are based on who you think I am, basically.
That makes sense.
I think I said that wrong leading up to it, but that's basically it. We build an identity based on what we think the perspective of other people is.
Right.
Which is outrageous, one. But two, it's hard to do that without people directly in your life. So this is kind of when you start to find a new circle.
Yep.
And you started working out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we did kind of pass over a little bit is
weight gain.
A little weight gain. So
just a little.
We passed over that. That's okay though. So from kind of starting at a young age, from experiencing the abuse from your mother, you kind of started turning to food for that.
Food is the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to turn towards the alcohol or anything like that because I watched her do that.
Yep.
So, I guess some people, like a lot of people, they either go down one path or the other, right? Like they see what their parents doing, self-destruction, they do the same thing.
Yep.
I went down the complete opposite. So still to this day at 37 years old, I've never had a sip of alcohol in my life or had any drugs ever.
That's amazing.
I've been straight edge since I was 13 years old. So when I turned to food for everything. I literally would eat until I had a puke. That was comfort for me. Like I had to feel that gross bloated feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally couldn't get down another bite and I was like happy as a clam. And of course it was all bullshit. Like I wasn't eating chicken and broccoli.
Oh yeah.
It was like anything McDonald's, Carl's Jr., like every fast food on the planet.
Right.
And my dad was a really great cook. So I would just, if he made dinner, it was just like game over. Like I would just eat everything I could. So, like I said, I played football in high school. And so that was like 2001. So, dude, we didn't talk about nutrition in 2001. Like that was not a thing.
Dude, they still don't.
They still don't. That's a great point. They still don't do it.
It's starting to become a conversation.
Right.
But oh my God, you don't cover nutrition in school. It's just not a thing.
It's terrible.
It's so awful.
So when football was over, like I can, in high school, I definitely started leaning out a little bit because when you're playing football,
You're moving.
you're lifting, 2
Yeah.
hours a morning and then practicing 3 hours. I'm moving for 5 hours a day,
Right.
running around in a helmet and shoulder pads. I'm sweating. I'm moving. I'm lifting weight. That's great. So I was like, okay weight. I think I was like in high school, my senior year, probably walking around at 225-ish, 220 roughly.
Good size high school kid.
It was okay, but I played offensive left tackle, so I was technically
Sure.
a midget.
Yeah, that's a good weight for a high school left tackle.
So when I graduated, not one person, not my dad, teacher, coach, nothing, nobody was like, hey, you can't keep eating that way anymore.
Right.
Football's over. Didn't even cross my mind. I was just amped up to graduate because I never thought it would happen. So I was like, great, graduate. I was in my band. Band was getting bigger.
Yeah.
I was getting bigger with it. So I just kept eating the exact same way, which honestly probably was 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day, roughly. I just
That's
didn't give a
up
shit.
there.
I was just pounding food.
Yeah.
It made me feel good.
Sure.
And so I turned into the funny fat guy in my group, wake up, literally stare at myself in the mirror every morning, miserable, hating myself, and then put on a shirt and go outside and I'm hilarious and fat, and I did that every single day for 12 years straight. So within a year and a half, I went from 220, 225 to 330.
Wow.
Yeah, like that fast.
Yeah.
And I stopped working out. Like I didn't think about getting a gym membership. Like
Right.
I didn't care. I just did that. I just played football since I was, a really young age. My senior, I'm like, cool, that's it. No more athletics. I don't need to lift anymore. I need to take a break. Well, that break crushed me.
Sure.
So I got morbidly obese and I was 330 for 12 years probably until I was 32.
Till you came to Northern Colorado,
Until
right?
I moved to Colorado.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you fell in with a good group. You met at it was a CrossFit gym, right?
So started CrossFit. Yeah,
CrossFit gym.
my neighbor's a CrossFit coach.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous because it's like, he was like, we were talking and he's like, oh, you played football, right? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, oh, you would like CrossFit.
You would love CrossFit.
It's like, why would you think that? Like, I guess like I guess just because of like Olympic lifting's incorporated in football, they do power cleans and stuff. So he's like, oh, you'll love this. And I had no idea. Like at the time, CrossFit was nothing.
Oh yeah. Because that was right about when it was starting to come
starting
around.
to blow up. It was starting to pick up, like steam a little bit.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what it was. And I was like, it's a gym? And like, yeah, it's a gym, but like you're with a bunch of people, the community, and you're going to work out together and do the same workout. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Accountability. I need that.
Sure.
I was like, yeah, like I'll come try it. And if CrossFit does anything well, I'm not the biggest fan, but if they do anything well, the community is amazing.
Oh yeah.
They're so tight knit, and they all care about each other. It's a little competitive, but that's good for some people.
Absolutely.
And so I started doing CrossFit and slowly started losing weight because I was moving again.
Right.
But I definitely played the game of like, worked out hard, get to eat
I
a
can
large
have a pizza.
Exactly. So I think we've all been there.
I have definitely not been there. My wife still gets mad at me this day. I'll like walk in from the gym with like Domino's and she's like, what? I'll be like, I killed it.
I
today,
worked
babe.
out really hard. I burned at
crushed
least 5,000 calories in that hour. So I definitely played the balancing act, and that only goes so far. So I think I chipped away maybe from 330 to 300 roughly.
Okay.
So doing CrossFit 300 is not comfortable.
Sure.
Tore my labrum in my hip doing CrossFit, of course. And just knew, and as I started kind of dipping into programming a little bit and learning, I was looking at the CrossFit program. I'm just like, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
Like,
Didn't
why,
feel very
why is the place just writing, like making up the workout on the fly when I get there and they're writing it on the board?
sure.
Nothing's done properly. So as I started digging a little bit, I'm like, oh, this current gym isn't doing anything right. I tore my labrum in my hip, probably because they're not doing anything right and teaching me proper form. So I was like, I'm going to bow out gracefully. Still great people. And I found a real nutrition coach that also is a strength and conditioning coach. And that changed the game.
Tell me about him.
I'm not going to tell you about him because he's a piece
I'm
of work.
sorry. Not
I'll
him.
tell you about the process.
Yes. Thank you.
So
I don't know why that
all
description
good.
to me was like, oh, it's Samson. Tell me about Samson.
no, it was not
No,
Samson.
it's not
It
Samson.
did the cleanup work, definitely.
That's
and
right.
taught
That's
me
right. Now I remember.
the fine. So this one person, who will remain nameless, kind of took me under his wing, taught me the ins and outs of nutrition, macros, blah, blah, blah. Learned that part of it from him, some of it. He kind of kept me in the dark because he wanted me needing him, you know, like a lot of people do, unfortunately. And then just kind of through what he taught me, I kind of fell in love with powerlifting a little bit. Probably just because I was a big dude and moving big weight was fun for me. that makes you feel good. And so I got into powerlifting. I thought I loved powerlifting. And then I ended up going to a seminar from a gentleman named Chris Duffin, who runs Kabuki Strength in Oregon. And he's a wizard of powerlifting and just strength in general. And so when we went to see Chris, I guess I just assumed it was going to be 3 days of barbells. Like, we're going to be doing barbell work. That's what I expected.
Yeah.
Powerlifting thing. So we get there, and then the first thing he grabs, and we all grab, is a kettlebell. I'm like, what the hell is happening? Like, I'm not here for kettlebells.
Am I in the
here-
wrong class?
Teach me how to deadlift, bro. Like, what are we doing? Like, you're the man. Tell me.
Yeah.
And so he started talking about kettlebells, and we're doing tons of like mobility work and strength work. We're using a kettlebell, and I kind of messed with him a little bit leading up to that. Never really dove in, but dude, something about that day and just working with the kettlebell, like I couldn't stop thinking about kettlebell work. And I didn't know there was a kettlebell community. I didn't know that was a thing.
Sure.
And so I started getting on Instagram and social media, started looking up kettlebell stuff. And then all of a sudden, like, here's this massive community. And you learn the history of the kettlebell. It makes sense, right? Like, it's been around since forever.
Oh, yeah.
From Russia.
It's one of the like original pieces of weight equipment.
It was actually made, they made them for farm workers because it was a counterbalance on a scale.
Okay.
And then it turned into what it turned into, which is hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I found Strong First, which is like the Harvard of kettlebell schools, I guess you would call it. And I was like, I need to do this. And so I signed up. Literally the most grueling 3 days of my entire life. Like, it was fucking brutal. Like, I did not go in ready at all. I passed, but it was not pretty. Like, I was like, oh, we're going to go learn how to swing a kettlebell, do some specialty work, and then there's going to be a little like written test. No, that was not it at all. It was literally like you were learning 2 movements. There's 6 total movements in hardstyle. So we learned 2 movements on Friday, and they would just like beat you down. It was very like militarist, like military style. Like, we would literally leave the trash on the floor, like when we left, and we'd have to come back and we'd start the day with 500 kettlebell swings. That was a penalty. Wow. And it was like, what? Like, and then I realized, I'm like, oh, like this is hardcore. Like, this isn't like, you're just going to breeze through this like a CrossFit cert and then be able to open a CrossFit gym. Like, they're going to like teach you the kettlebell the right way. So it was just 3 days of just getting your ass handed to you. And then at the end of that ass handing, you have to test out, and it's ridiculous. Like, it's 500, if anyone knows what this even looks like, it's 500 kettlebell snatches 100 kettlebell snatches in a 5-minute period. And you have to get that done or you fail. And after 3 days of 12 hours of training each day. So somewhere I have to pull it up, but there's a picture of me literally like pressing a kettlebell over my head and blood just pouring down my arm. Because my hands ripped open. I was packing chalk in it to just get through.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so I ended up crushing it. I passed it. And I became a Strong First kettlebell coach. And then the kind of like my love and in fact like obsession with kettlebells just kind of carried over from there.
This didn't cross my mind the first time you told me this part of the story. But do you think if your experience being introduced to kettlebells, like if it had been less significant or less harsh,
I wouldn't care. No way.
And I don't know why that didn't like pop in my head the first time, but I mean, it just makes so much sense.
Somebody asked me that. They said if anyone else would have grabbed the kettlebell other than Chris Duffin, like who I like look up to, like as a strength coach, and just showed you some, would you have cared? I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Like if it had been that walk through the park type of, you know, seminar weekend where he's like, hey guys, welcome.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait for you all to be certified.
Totally.
Like, I feel like you'd have been like, dude, like eat it. Like, I'm out of here.
Right.
Like, but no, like I think
it was a challenge.
Yeah.
You got to bite down and get through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge reason why that ended up being such a monumental thing. And maybe it was partly the kettlebell itself that was appealing, but I have to imagine the way that was introduced to
100%
was probably a huge indicator of why you held on to it so hard.
And strong.
Literally and figuratively while bleeding, holding on to the kettlebell.
Yeah. And it's just like, and it's like great marketing. And like, when I was looking into it, like every dude had a beard and covered in tattoos. I'm like,
I'm a dude.
That's me. That's my community. It's perfect. So yeah, no, 110%. The person that, you know, made me start using one, like I looked up to that dude. I'm like, if Chris is like, we have to use them. Like, he's the smartest guy out there. One of them, you know? And then I look at Strong First, like who does kettlebell certifications, and they're all badass and just like, and it
Yeah.
looks fun and explosive. And I'm like, this is it. Like, so I've been just obsessed ever since and learning different variations of kettlebell work ever since and
Hmm.
being certified a couple times over. And that's definitely my, like, through classes and stuff that I teach, it's like, that's the focus.
Yeah. And this is for those of you who are from Northern Colorado. This is something Zach still does.
Oh yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit more here in a moment. But he is a part owner of a gym. You teach kettlebell classes. I refuse to go because I like to sit down in between my sets. But no, I've watched the classes. I've seen them firsthand. It's an amazing experience.
That's hilarious.
I'm stuck in my ways.
Yeah.
I like to do a set and sit down. Get some water.
I get it.
Hey guys, we're taking a short break from our episode to remind you that season 1 of the Failing Forward podcast is brought to you by Atlas Nutrition. And today, guys, I have a brief special guest in the studio with me today. It's Atlas Nutrition coach, founder, and owner, Tony Polidoro. Tony, welcome back in, man. How are you?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, brother. Super happy to have you here. Guys, to be completely honest with you, in light of what this show stands for, transparency, vulnerability, learning from each other, I wanted to invite Tony back in and have you guys hear our conversation about where this partnership came from and why it makes sense. Tony, would you mind sharing in your words what drew you to following through with this partnership?
Oh, of course, man. Yeah. So when you approached me with the idea of this failing forward mentality, I just truly believe that it aligns very well with Atlas Nutrition's approach of helping people achieve a healthy mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely. And that's something that really, really sets you guys apart. It's more than just nutrition plans, more than just exercise plans. They want to help you as a client grow from a mind, body, and soul perspective, from really every aspect of life. And I can say confidently, I'm assuming that's from a lot of your own experiences growing up and how you found fitness and what it meant to you. That's one of the reasons you and I have such a strong relationship is we kind of both found fitness in terms of what it did and benefit towards our mental health. And you guys do an amazing job with it. I can speak from personal experiences as well as what I've witnessed. I mean, you guys have done some amazing things. You've created great partnerships with your clients. Heck, I've seen clients make it all the way to the national stage in terms of contest prep. And I've seen first time people in the gym fall so in love with this that they change their career paths entirely and become a coach of yours.
Yeah.
And it's truly been amazing. That's a testament to what you guys do, the level of care and personal connection you apply to your time with your clients. And I really just respect what you guys do. And to
Thank
be
you,
honest,
man.
I couldn't think of a better person to partner with for this first season. It's been amazing.
We're excited.
Absolutely. And you mentioned when you came in that you guys actually have been thinking up something additionally for our audience. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, of course. So obviously with the idea that your audience is very invested in wanting to change their lives, we want to support that and offer an exclusive discount to the Failing Forward audience.
That's awesome, man. So what you're saying is our audience is going to get exclusive discounts to some of your programs that you offer?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is huge because this is not something you guys do. You see and believe in the value of your programs and your services. So sales really aren't much of a thing in your business typically.
No, we rarely discount because again, we believe in the value, right?
Absolutely. This is huge.
Want to make a difference.
And where could our audience find more information on this if they're interested in learning more?
Of course, yeah. So, reach out to us at our website, atlasnutritionllc.com, or Instagram at Atlas Nutrition Official, and mention that you're coming our way from Jared at Failing Forward.
This is awesome, man. I can't thank you enough for offering something like this to the audience. You're absolutely right. The people who do listen to shows like this are people who are always looking to improve. And guys, if you're looking to improve your physical fitness, you can't pick a better partner than the coaches at Atlas Nutrition. So give them a follow again at Atlas Nutrition Official on Instagram. Check out their website at atlasnutritionllc.com. Give them a shout. Let them know you're interested. Tell them I sent you. And sounds like they're going to take care of you really well. Tony, thanks again for coming on, letting us know that. And guys, I'll see you at Atlas Nutrition.
So I worked with that one dude, and then he kind of taught me some ropes, and then I had a falling out with that guy. And then I actually met Samson through that guy.
Okay. So there was a connection.
It was
there.
all kind of meant to be.
Yep.
Met Samson through him. Samson vanished from that little circle. I'm like, where did that cool guy go? Like, I liked him. He was kind of cool. And then me and Samson were really friendly, but like didn't really keep contact or anything. So when I left, I didn't know where to go.
Sure.
I
So
definitely felt lost.
just so our listeners are following along, little falling out with your former coach,
Yep.
and he owned a gym.
Yep.
And that also kind of fell apart a
Yes.
little bit. So you lost your gym, you lost your coach,
Everything
you kind of feel like the sense of community you had is kind of gone as well.
gone. Yep.
So go ahead and continue from there.
So you go to the only place where you know there's weight at, and that's Gold's Gym.
There you go. Everyone has one.
Yep. I walk into Gold's Gym on Monday morning at 5 a.m. and Samson is standing at the freaking doorway.
Of course.
Like it was meant to be. And he's like, "What are you doing here?" Like he just knew something happened. And I was like, "Oh, I think you know." And he was like, "Let's go lift." Literally, the rest is history.
Yeah.
Like he literally just kind of took me under his wing. And then we started lifting every day at 5 a.m. at Gold's Gym. And that's how I met you.
Yep.
Like that's where you were lifting at.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a little group of like, started off with like 4 dudes that were there every morning at 5 a.m. lifting. You saw us all there.
Yep.
And then that little group turned into like 20 at one point, I think. And everyone was just showing up, and Samson was writing the lifting program. And we were just doing the program. And he had an online nutrition company called Chasing Muscle. And so
right.
I started working with him for nutrition because like it felt natural, and he was really good at what he did. And he was like, "I'll do your nutrition for you. Like, I'm going to teach you how to do it properly." And I was like, "Cool. I never got that. I have an idea, but I don't know the ins and outs." And he's like,
Right.
"I'm going to teach you how to do it properly."
He wanted you to be self-sufficient in this.
Exactly.
It wasn't just he didn't want to be
and be his partner. That was
Right.
part of the battle plan.
Sure, yeah.
I figured out later. So he taught me everything is new. He was my nutrition coach. Best shape I've ever been in my entire life was with him. And then he actually brought me on Chasing Muscle for our online nutrition company to help just take over clients and run stuff and help people kind of change their lives the way I did it.
Absolutely.
I lived it, being a morbidly obese, normal dude, to being a pretty in shape, normal dude. And so I wanted to help normal people kind of go down the same path I did.
And I want to make sure we don't just skip over that. Guys, Zack lost over 120 pounds
Yep.
in 18 months.
18 months straight.
That's insane.
I didn't slip one time. Even when I was like given like, "Hey, you got a cheat meal." I was like, "Nope." Because I still am a food addict. I was such a food addict that I knew that like one cheat meal could trigger a downfall.
Sure.
I just knew it. Like my, I don't know. Like my resilience wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, it'd be like a heroin addict being like, "Let me just have a little bump. It'll be fun tonight." And then it's like downward spiral.
Let me reward myself.
Yeah, exactly.
I've done so good this week.
Exactly. We talked about that, right? So like that was probably like, honestly, that was probably my biggest hurdle to jump is like I had this weird reward thing. Like
Right.
worked hard all week at work, Friday night, I get a cheat meal. And I was like, why am I giving myself food like a dog?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That was by far my hardest habit to break.
Yeah.
Was the Friday night binge eating.
Do you know why it was? Because we're literally biologically created to respond to rewards. Like
There we go.
that's literally the molecule of dopamine is the reward molecule. It's
Well,
it's
it
what gets
worked.
produced when we feel good about what we've done.
It worked.
And it's like it's true. Like
yeah.
it's really, really hard to break that habit. I'm someone that's very similar. I have an addictive personality, whether
Mhm.
it's about food or anything really. And I know if I give in to that, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Like there's not really just one kind
Right,
of thing. Like
right.
that's just not the way some people's brains work.
Yep.
But you stuck with it to a absolutely dedicated degree
Yep.
over the course of 18 months, dropped 120 pounds
The right way.
the right way. You've kept it off. You've continued training. You've continued educating yourself with Samson. You continued working on your kettlebell education as well. And then eventually you had a conversation with somebody
Yeah.
that put an idea in your head.
Yep. So
And things started moving very, very quickly. And what's funny about that, and I'm gonna let you tell it, but I feel like you enjoyed that situation
I
so
did.
much that you almost mirror that in events to come later.
Yeah,
Like you
for
figured out
sure.
like, oh, if I just run really fast with this, I can make shit happen.
pretty much.
And it's worked for you a couple of different times. So what did you and Samson end up doing together there?
So I ended up working at another gym while I was still training with Samson every morning. I trained with him, and then I'd go work at this gym, and I was just teaching like functional style kettlebell
Mhm.
classes. And it was great gym. So I ended up working out with this lady that was there. I had no idea who she was. And then it turns out her name's Rachel Pastor, who also runs Fort Collins Fitness Festival currently. But she owns a really cool like in-home gym that she runs like private clients through and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So me and Rachel started geeking about kettlebell stuff, a lot of stuff in common. And then randomly a week later, she texts me and says, "Hey, I'm going out of town. Do you want to take over some of my classes for a week at my private gym?" I'm like, "You don't know me or like what I do." She's like, "No, but a lot of people I know you and they love the way you teach." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great. I'll come over and check out your spot and I'll take over wherever you need me to take over." So I drive over her house and I remember like it was yesterday. I go to shake her hand and she doesn't shake my hand and she just like looks me dead in the eye and she's like, "Why don't you own a gym?" And dude, like my mind exploded because I was like, why would she ask me that? Like that
Right.
makes no sense. I'm just a coach. It never, ever in my life at that point, that I think I'd ever be a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
let alone own a gym. Like you can't do that. Like you were a big fat guy forever. Like you're just a good coach now, like that's it. And I don't even remember what she said the rest of the time I was with her because I was just like, my brain was like, why would she say that? Like she's got a cool gym. Like she's got a good clientele base. Like why would she ask me that? And it was just eating me alive. I don't remember anything she said to me the rest of the time we were together.
Yeah.
And so I literally was like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll teach your classes," and just like ran out of the door. And then I called Samson. He's got the entrepreneur brain. He always has.
Yep.
That dude's a big part of my success. Like I just look up to that guy a lot and he's helped me with so much. But I call him. I said, "Hey, have you ever thought about opening a gym?" And he was like, "It's been my dream since I was in high school." I said, "We should do it. Like we should figure it out." And he's like, "Hell yeah, let's go." Like he's just like a go guy.
That's like the most Samson response I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Let's figure it out. I said, "Okay, cool." So we sat down and we were like, "Hey, like we got to be different. Like how we're not going to just open a gym and it's going to be successful. What can set us apart?" And so we already did the nutrition thing. And he's like, "What if we open the first ever nutrition based training facility where like the members would train and we would do the nutrition? It's the whole package,
Right.
not just the training, not just the nutrition. They get everything." I was like, "That's freaking awesome." We looked it up. We couldn't find anything that existed that was like that in the United States. Read our business plan. And then this awesome building opens up. And I know the owners and I say, "Hey, like we would love to move in there to open a gym possibly. Like, can we meet with you?" Thank God we had a business plan ready to go because these guys are like big time business guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not going to care about our plan. Like they're just going to like want renters in there,
Right.
And I show up and they're like, "Give us the business plan." And I was like, "Oh my God." I'm like,
That's
"Dude,
the one
thank
thing we have."
God we actually made that. So we slid it over and they're like, "Oh, awesome concept. Never heard of that. Love it. Like that's different than any other gym."
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Yeah, you guys are in." And I was like, "Oh shit. Like this is actually happening." I didn't think it would like actually work out this way.
Right.
And so obviously the next thought is like, how the hell are we going to pay for this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And so oddly enough, all of the nutrition clients we've been working with online, which it bumped up quickly. Like I remember when I started working with Samson's online nutrition company, I was like, "Oh, this year I'm going to get 10 clients. Like that's my goal." I had like 37 within a month.
Wow.
It was ridiculous how fast things build up. And so we were getting paid through PayPal at the time. Venmo didn't exist. And neither one of us touched our PayPal money. Never talked about it. It was just accumulating. We had other jobs, so we
Right.
didn't need it. It was kind of just like savings.
Sure.
And so when we talked, we're like, "Okay, who has money like to do this?" And I'm like, "Well, I have my PayPal money." And we're like, he's like, "I have my PayPal money too." And we're like, "Oh crap." So we ended up, I forget what we started with. It was maybe like $10,000, maybe like nothing, not a chunk of money.
Yeah.
But we knew that
Equipment's expensive.
it is, but we also knew that functional equipment wasn't that expensive.
Sure.
So I was like, "Okay, we need some squat racks because we believe in strength and barbell work. We need barbells, we need bumper plate weight, and then obviously I need kettlebells and whatever else, and we'll just figure it out."
Right.
And so we freaking built this at the time kind of little gym, like 4,000 square feet, and built it. And all those people that we were working out with at Golds in the morning, like 30 of them are like, "Yep, we're all your first clients." And so all 30 of them just left Golds, and then like we opened the first day with 30 clients like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were even like in the black.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think we
30
ever
clients
paid
brought you up?
backwards. Yeah. And so
Wow.
I was like, "All right, cool. Really good start, but we can't let these people leave.
Right.
And we got to get more." And so, Samson's got a great marketing company he works with and works for and is part owner in. And he started building our marketing plan and just, we honestly just learned on the fly. Like we had a somewhat of a plan, but we're still learning. We're 3 years in and it's still like, how can we get better? Like, how can we give more to our clients? Really, we opened a spot for all of our friends to come lift at with us. It was never like we're going to open this thing and make a bunch of money.
Right.
It never has that crossed our mind, still hasn't crossed our mind. It's like, let's get all the best people under one roof to be with us lifting and enjoying this spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we've been trying to do since we've opened.
You guys have done an absolutely amazing job.
Thank
with
you.
it.
Appreciate it.
I'm very fortunate to be someone who's kind of been able to watch it go through all these steps and transitions, and really the environment and atmosphere you guys have created there is really unlike anything
Thank
else.
you. Appreciate it.
And I think anybody who's listening who has been a regular at a gym for any part of their life knows how important that is. You stay at gyms because of the atmosphere, the environment,
the culture, man.
The culture.
I'm such a big culture guy. Like it's like I've been in the Poison before.
Oh yeah.
And it's like the last thing you ever want to do is like work all day and then go to a gym where there's drama and shithead coaches and just a bad vibe.
Yeah.
Like, cause then you don't go.
Yeah.
And then your health suffers and then you're spending money on a membership they don't care about. So like I refuse to let that happen with members or coaches alike.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that is my biggest focus. Like I'm going to have people in there that all love each other. My coaches are going to love on everybody. We're going to give you everything that you need, the best that we can, and just enjoy. Like it's your therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're going through a stressful day, at least you can go to the gym and like forget about stuff for a little bit,
enjoy your
and have
time
a
there.
great time there.
Yeah.
And then leave and go back into the crap. But
yeah,
it's like as long as you're under our roof, like you're going to have a great part of your day is going to be with us.
Absolutely.
So.
And I'm super excited to see you guys continue to grow.
Thanks,
I know
man.
You will. I know you're at anywhere near the end.
We have some ideas.
I bet. I imagined you did. But so this is another thing kind of popped into my head after you and I talked the first time. And I think it just makes so much sense that you and Samson have had such a great connection over these years. And it's because you have the makings of a great partnership. You have a scientist and an artist.
Yeah. And not only that, I just care about that dude so much, and vice versa. Like our families are close. I just love him to death.
Of course. And I've got a very similar friendship and partnership myself. And actually, I see like a lot of you and Samson and he and I as well. And he's the scientist. He thinks critically and logically. He's the take action. He's the hell yeah guy. Like, we'll figure it out.
Right.
You're the artist. I mean, you're literally a musician.
Right.
You think creatively. You produce content verbally and visually. Sometimes like me, I'm this person too. You might be a little more hesitant to pull the trigger on something until you have everything in front of you.
Sure.
But that also doesn't mean that you don't believe in something.
Right.
Because usually I would imagine a lot of the ideas come from your head as well, as far as where you guys go directionally.
Yeah, he's kind of put me in that position.
Yeah.
I'm definitely managing the gym and stuff. He's the behind the scenes guy, which is perfect. So he gives me full reign. And so obviously me being there, like I kind of see where I want things to go. He trusts me 110%.
Absolutely.
What I say needs to go equipment wise, coaches wise, class wise. He's like, yep, do it. It's all you. And then when it comes to marketing, everything on the back, I'm like,
you do this.
I don't want to do that. It's all you, brother. And he thrives on that stuff.
He
so
does.
Yeah, it is a really good combo.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it yourself. I mean, the relationship is a huge piece of it. When you're willing to go to the ends of the earth for somebody,
right?
It creates a very, very strong
and we call each other out hard.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not like it's a brother thing for sure.
Yep.
But I know that at the end of the day, like we do that to one another because we know it's just going to make the facility better.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So it's understanding which hat you have on.
100%.
Are we talking to each other as business partners, or are we talking to each other as friends right now? But the reason I bring up that scientist and artist example is I think you're also becoming a little bit of a scientist.
He's taught me well.
Well, not only that, but I think your confidence has come up because you said it yourself. You're like, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur, never saw myself owning a business.
Yeah.
It's almost like you didn't believe in your capability to do it.
Sure.
But you did it once and you've done it very well. It's continued to grow and become successful. And I feel like because of that, a little part of you turned on that, all right, let's just go do it, part of your brain.
Yep.
And I want to make sure we touch on this because this is, believe it or not, in my opinion, the most impactful part of your story because of your wife, Sydney.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about Sydney, what she does, and then please tell our listeners what you helped do for her in the recent, what, it was like a year ago?
Yep, we just hit a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I met Sydney so Rachel, who I talked about, who kind of gave me the motivation to open a gym.
Yep.
We were ambassadors for the Fort Collins Fitness Festival, her and I, Sydney and I. And we were just, at that point, just social media friends, like chit
Sure.
chatted once in a while, but I never met her in person because I literally thought that she was just like, I don't want to say fake, but I'm like, dude, she's like so bubbly and just perfect
sure.
online. I'm like, there's no way this is real.
Right.
You know? And so she always seemed super nice when we would chit chat and whatever. So I go to Fitness Festival to shoot this commercial. She's there. Well, sure enough, she's the exact same freaking person.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my God, I'm in love with this girl. Like, what the hell? Like, how is she that awesome? And like, there's no way. And so, we shoot the commercial. Great to meet her. That was pretty much the end of that. I didn't think anything much of it, honestly, because I thought she was completely out of my class, to be honest with you. And then so Rachel, 2 weeks later, she calls me and she was like, hey, like, I know you just got out of a relationship, but like, would you date anyone? And I was like, absolutely not. And then of course, like my brain starts turning. I'm like, well, who is it? Like,
Right.
you just
Who's
want to,
asking?
yeah, I just want to know. Like, it's not a big deal. And she was like, it was Sydney. And I was like, no way. And she was like, yeah. I'm like, give me your number now. So text her, and then me and Sydney started dating, and we merged our families. I have a little boy, and she has 2 amazing kids that we're one big happy family now. So we're together for a year and a half probably. And she works at Cycle Bar Fort Collins, which is a large indoor cycling studio that's a franchise owned business.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, to kiss her butt, I start cycling, which I hate more than anything. No, it's fun. But it wasn't like my passion necessarily, but I'm like, I want to be in the same room with Sydney and be coached by her. Like,
it's funny what we do for people
right.
we love.
Yeah. It's bizarre. Right. So, I'm there, and I'm like, the first thing I'm realizing, and I'm like, she loves this place as much as I love Pursuit. And I'm like, and that makes no sense because she's not the owner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's that saying, like, nobody cares more than the owner.
Right.
You know, like I have an incredible staff at Pursuit. Like, they're top notch. But it's like the little things. Like, are you going to pick up that little piece of trash that's on the floor? Usually that's an owner thing.
It's the mentality of not being bigger than any job.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yours, so you baby the crap out of it.
Yep.
And she's doing that at Cycle Bar as a teacher. And I'm like, why is she going all this extra way to like take care of these people at Cycle Bar?
Right.
And be so sweet to the staff and be so sweet to the members and do all the small things. And I'm just like, that's not normal. Like, that's crazy. And I'm like, she needs to own this. We need to freaking buy this place. So I don't talk to her about it. And I just call the owner, Shelly. And I say, hey, let's get lunch. And she says, cool, what about? And I say, I just want to talk about something. So I meet with Shelly, say, hey, would you ever sell Cycle Bar to me and Sydney? And she was like freaked out. She said that she's always felt like she's built that place for Sydney.
Yeah.
Which told me immediately that it was meant to be. So I say, okay, cool. Let's figure this out. How much do you want for it? And so we start just having meetings. It took a long time, started figuring everything out. And then probably like a week in, Sid still doesn't know I'm talking to Shelly.
Mm-hmm.
And I go home like, hey, we're going to buy a Cycle Bar. She doesn't necessarily have the entrepreneur brain, even though she owns a hair salon.
Uh-huh.
Just taking massive jumps like that really wasn't her at the time. And so she didn't say no. She just walked out of the room laughing. I said, okay, cool. We're moving forward. And so we end up buying Cycle Bar, and I help with some stuff on the back end, but man, she runs that thing like a freaking top.
Yeah.
And it was overwhelming at first, obviously, like it's all new and
of course.
a lot to learn. And she went from being a teacher and like a head cycle star, which is in the cycling world, it's kind of a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
to lead instructor, to owner, to managing the entire thing.
Right.
And so our staff there is just unreal. Like, she's polished it perfectly. Our GM is incredible. Our other head instructor is next level. And those 3 working together is just like, they're just killing it. So now we own Cycle Bar. We just hit 1 year. And it's awesome.
That was way too nonchalant, man.
Well, it honestly, it kind of like happens so smoothly, and she runs it so well. It's kind of nonchalant in a way.
Sure.
Like, I still don't look at Pursuit and go, that's funny. I was just talking to Samson this day. I never look at Pursuit and go, damn, do we own this like massive, whatever it is, like 8,000 square foot training facility with Olympic weightlifting team that's top notch, insane powerlifting coaches, and run all these awesome classes with a couple hundred incredible members. Like the other day, I was just like sitting in there, kind of soaking it in, which I rarely do, just because I'm so busy all the time. And I was like, "Dang, this is crazy."
Gave yourself that moment to reflect.
Yeah, and just love it, and just be appreciative of everyone that's been in my path, including you, like since it's all happened. And so I kind of look at Psycho Bar the same way, and so does Sid. Like she's just having a party every day,
Yeah.
riding on a freaking bike, listening to EDM music with a light show, with all of her friends that she loves dearly, in this big old open room, but then we sit back and I go, wow, I was like a poor punk rock kid from LA that now lives in Northern Colorado and has his family with Psycho Bar Pursuit.
Mm.
And it's just crazy, dude.
That's unbelievable. I still, part of me doesn't believe it. Like,
It's
literally,
weird.
You on a whim, basically, over the course of a day, decided like I'm gonna take on this risk, this enormous risk of a business because I know it'll make somebody else happy.
Yes.
And nobody does stuff like that. Not nobody, but it's a very, very small number of people who will put themselves in that type of position
Right.
to see other people feel fulfilled, happy, an opportunity to chase something that they're passionate about. And it just all makes sense when it comes from you.
Right.
If I can say that as plain and simple as possible, because I think that's always who you've been.
When it comes to it, a couple things about the gym industry or the wellness industry that always like I was really attracted to is the scalability, like how you're able to manipulate that to what you want it to be. That's awesome. I love that because I'm very much that way. I think that's why I love kettlebells because I can just do so much with a kettlebell.
Sure.
Gym business is kind of the same way, but man, serving people, I thrive on that shit.
Yeah.
So like I'm so and Sid's the same exact way. Like we're such extroverts and we just love people so much and believe in people so much that I know that if it comes to a business where it's serving individuals, I know that I'm probably going to do pretty well because it's not a gimmick to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a money making situation to me. It's like I get the opportunity. These people are trusting me to teach them how to train properly and get stronger. Like I'm going to give them everything I have. And I love that.
Would you say that's a big piece of it? Because you actually said something that I haven't thought about before. Because I'm a very similar person. My wife's a very similar
100%
person.
You guys are.
We both follow dreams and aspirations that give us opportunities to be in the service of others.
Right.
And the one word you said that really stuck out to me was trust.
Mhm.
People putting their trust in
Yes.
you to help get them to this end result. And I think that was perfect because I've never really thought about that, but I think that is a very, very powerful and impactful weight to be put on your shoulders.
Yep.
Because it's not just you. It's not
No.
you doing something for yourself. It's going to the ends of the earth for someone else.
And especially when it comes to something like health,
Yeah.
that's a big freaking deal.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I think like when I see just bad coaches and trainers, like nothing gets under my skin more.
Oh.
Because they're looking at the opportunity to work with somebody to make a dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Where they should be looking at the opportunity to work with someone to change their freaking life. And maybe I'm just more sensitive to it than others because I did it, and I know the struggles that a lot of general population people are going through to get there. So I can sympathize because I was that person. So I know what it takes. And I'm literally going to give you everything I have in me to have you feel what I have felt.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I just thrive on those opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could not agree with you more on that. My background. I'd had a lot of time in the fitness and health
Yep.
industry as a trainer, doing the supplement thing. And I always told myself I was doing it because of my opportunity to help others.
Yep.
And really, and I know this is still very, very new, but doing what we're doing now with this podcast, I think all of that was leading me towards either this or something that this is leading me
Sure.
towards, if that makes sense. Because it's not just the aspect of helping someone. It's reaching into those vulnerable, personal parts of your own life and understanding that no one's alone.
Right.
And I think that's what you kind of carry within yourself when people approach you for help in terms of their physical health. is that experience. You know what you went through. You know why you went through it.
Right.
You know where the bad habits came from. You know every inch of hard work you've put in, and also know it's possible.
Yep.
And that's how I view my experience with depression and anxiety. And I know absolutely there's other people that experience this.
Sure.
And I know what those darkest days feel like, where
Right.
you feel totally alone, where you don't feel like there is a solution. And I'm not sitting here saying I have all the answers by any means. I will absolutely pride myself on continuing to educate myself in this space.
But you've experienced it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know what those worst days
Right.
feel like. And I also know what I've done to get myself away from those days
Yep.
and to have a lot more better days than bad days.
Yep.
And ever since I made that decision, I feel like my mindset's changed, my personality has changed, and I think my mind opened up to opportunity as
Right.
well. And I'm just seeing a lot of similarities in what you do and how you got there, as well as what I've done myself. And I'm so glad we sat down and got to go over this again, because your story hit me so hard the first time you told me that. I was literally sitting in your office, like I was kind of stunned. Like, I don't even think I knew what to say. Like when you're like, "Oh yeah," and I bought Cycle Bar for Sydney over the course of like 3 days. I was like, "Hold on, wait, you just hold on. You can't just scan over this." Like, but I was so blown away by not only what you've been through, but how you viewed it, what you chose to work for yourself rather than against yourself. Like everything,
Right.
it all makes so much sense. And I really can't think of someone who's in a more perfect position to not only help people, but to really do what they were put here to do.
Seems like it's all falling into place.
It seems that way. You mentioned that I know we're kind of getting low on time, but that was one thing you mentioned at the very end of our conversation, that you weren't typically raised in like a traditional religious household.
Right.
And we don't have to get into that conversation too in depth. But one thing you said to me was that you're starting to notice some patterns in life
Yeah.
recently. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it just seems like it's like a written story, and like everything has been put in front of me in a certain way to like lay out to what today has come to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I've never been religious. I was baptized Catholic. My family was never religious or anything, but it's hard to ignore just how things like fall into place.
Sure.
It seems like somebody made this happen. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to sit and reflect on. So yeah, it's crazy, man.
It
I don't
is.
know.
It is, man. It is. And I think that's been one of the biggest takeaways from today is you can accomplish so much through reflecting and revisiting
Yeah.
things that we've experienced in the past. Once we can get through that moment of emotion that comes up with the memory, there's things to learn there.
Oh yeah.
There's things that we can
The
we can
problem
use.
is we're all so freaking busy these days
Oh yeah.
that like for you to like sit, and like
We're too
think,
impatient.
think about what's going on in your day and like things that have affected you in good and bad and how you can capitalize on all that. That's why this podcast is fantastic, because you're pulling all that out. So like I commend you for doing this, because I know that this is no small undertaking. Like this is no joke.
I appreciate that.
And this is an awesome setup. So
I
yeah,
really
man,
appreciate
this
that.
is great, because it gives people like me the opportunity to like sit and talk to you. And because like even the last time we talked about my story, like I definitely was like, oh dang, like Jared said some things that I've never thought about.
Right.
Which kind of just changed my whole perspective on a couple of like things that have happened in my life.
Well, what's funny is we've covered the same information, but I got something completely different from it today than I did last time. And it was the same story.
Yeah.
Like that's the beautiful thing about it, is it's the same people in the similar environment going over the same information.
Just some different details.
But the things I caught onto this time were completely different, and you can truly learn from anything and anyone as long as you're approaching it with an open mind.
100%.
And dude, I thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, man.
This has
This
been
has
an
been
awesome,
super cool.
awesome conversation. I know my listeners are going to just eat this up.
Cool.
And I know I do have a lot of listeners up in the northern Colorado area, and I'm sure a few of them have had their interest piqued by some of your businesses. Would you mind just sharing kind of some of where they can find more information about like Pursuit and Cycle Bar?
Yeah. So if you're into lifting and strength, Pursuit is the gym. That's in Windsor, right off of I-25 and Crossroads. Our Instagram tag is pursuit.fit. That's also our website. And Cycle Bar on Instagram is Cycle Bar Fort Collins, and that is right on College, like in the Foothills Mall area.
Perfect.
So if you wanted to get your ass handed to you by a bunch of badass chicks, that's where you go for that.
That is no lie. My wife brought me to one of Sydney's classes, and
it's no joke.
That kicked my ass.
Yeah,
absolutely. Or if the kettlebell aspect interests you as well, I know you have a kettlebell specific page, right?
Yeah, my Instagram page for my kettlebell stuff is kettlebell_chaos.fit.
What a perfect name.
And I do just a lot of I do a ton of technique based stuff on there to teach people about hard style and flow. And then also I just post random workouts like throughout the week. So if you want to try something new and change up your HIIT routine or just get stronger through kettlebell work, you have all of the knowledge there that you need.
And honestly, guys, even if getting to one of these great businesses isn't in your cards, I would absolutely advise, at the very least, go follow these pages and really get to know the people behind these businesses. If you're like me and like to be impacted and inspired by your Instagram feed, these are all amazing pages to have on there.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it, man.
You're definitely going to see some great stuff on a week-to-week basis.
Thank you.
But thank you, man. I really do appreciate your time today. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Can't wait to see you guys again next week with actually our current guest business partner, Samson.
Yeah.
And guys, do not forget, no matter how hard you fail, keep failing forward. Thanks, guys.